There comes a point in every life when the past tries to call you back. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it screams. You could be at peace, standing tall, building something new, and suddenly a voice from long ago reminds you of the person you once were. Maybe it's a friend who remembers your mistakes more vividly than your victories. Maybe it's a relative who can't let go of the old story. Or maybe, sometimes, it's your own reflection, looking back at you and whispering, "You remember that, right? That's who you used to be." And in that moment, something inside you tightens. You feel that sting, not because your past is returned, but because someone or something is trying to use it against you. That is betrayal reborn. That is the test of your growth. You see, anyone can change their life when no one's watching. But true peace is proven when the world reminds you what you've already forgiven yourself for, and you stand still, unmoved, unshaken, untouchable. Most people, when confronted with their past, do one of two things. They deny or they defend. We raise our walls. We explain, justify, prove that we've changed. But in doing so, we fall right into the trap. We hand over our peace like it's a currency. The Stoics, those ancient architects of calm, understood something most of us forget. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your evolution. You owe yourself peace. And so, when someone drags your past into the present to wound you, there are three responses that disarm the attack, not with aggression, but with absolute composure. First Stoic response: yes, that happened. It sounds simple. It sounds small. But this sentence carries the strength of an entire philosophy. Yes, that happened. Those three words shatter the illusion of control others try to have over you. They expected defense. They expected guilt. They expected shame. But instead, you gave them acceptance, the one thing they can't argue with. Acceptance is not weakness. It is liberation. The ego says, forget it. The Stoic says, face it. When someone says, you failed at that job, you say, yes, that happened. When they say, you hurt people when you were younger, you say, yes, I did, and I faced that truth. Because the moment you stop running from your past stops running after you. Seneca once wrote, there is nothing more noble than being able to look at one's own faults and say, yes, that was me and I have learned. That's not weakness. That's courage in its purest form. You see, people who use your past against you aren't looking for truth. They're looking for reaction. They want to see you shrink. But when you answer with stillness, they lose their power. Your calm is their confusion. Your peace is their defeat. Because once you stop being ashamed of your story, no one can weaponize it again. Second Stoic response: I've learned from it. Here lies transformation. The first response acknowledges the past. The second reclaims it. When you say, I've learned from it, you're no longer defined by what happened. You're defined by what you became through it. That's the difference between guilt and growth. Guilt traps you. Growth frees you. Every scar tells a story, but a healed scar doesn't hurt anymore. It remains as a lesson, not a wound. Think of Nelson Mandela, 27 years in a cell, yet he emerged without hate. He said, I learned that freedom begins in the mind. He didn't deny his pain. He learned from it, and in doing so, he transformed not only himself, but an entire nation. Or Viktor Frankl, who survived the concentration camps and wrote that even in suffering, man can choose his meaning. That's Stoicism in motion, the refusal to let external pain define internal peace. So when someone says you failed, you answer, yes, but that failure taught me how to rise. When they say you loved and lost, you say, yes, and that loss taught me how to love better. When they say you were broken, you say, yes, and I learned how to rebuild. That is power. That is freedom. That is wisdom made visible. Marcus Aurelius wrote, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Your past doesn't block your path. It is your path. Every mistake, every heartbreak, every fall has carried you closer to truth. The Stoic doesn't erase the fire. He walks through it until he learns how to glow. Third Stoic response: why are you bringing this up now? This one breaks the spell. No anger, no sarcasm, just calm, grounded curiosity. When you ask, "Why are you bringing this up now?" you flip the mirror. Suddenly, the spotlight isn't on your past. It's on their intent. They wanted to control the conversation. Now they have to explain themselves. They have to face the discomfort of their own motives. If they meant no harm, they'll reflect. If they meant to wound you, they'll crumble under the weight of their exposure. Epictetus said, "The one who harms others is the one already in pain." So when someone uses your past to hurt you, remember, they're not really speaking to you. They're speaking from their own wounds. They're projecting the shame they haven't healed. When you respond with calm curiosity, you're not just protecting your peace. You're offering them a mirror, and that's the ultimate Stoic move. You disarm without attacking. You expose without humiliating. You remain free while they wrestle with their own unrest. The power of silence and self-control. Now let's talk about silence, the Stoic's greatest weapon. We live in a world that worships noise. Everyone has something to prove. Everyone wants the last word. But the one who remains silent in chaos, that's the one who truly holds power. Seneca said, "The one who angers you conquers you." Every time you react, you surrender control. Every time you stay calm, you reclaim it. Some might say, but silence makes people think you're weak. No, silence makes people wonder what gives you such strength. Because it's easy to shout when you're emotional. It's difficult to stand still when your peace is being tested. Someone once told me, "You never react. That scares people." And I said, "I'm not trying to scare anyone. I'm just done being dragged into wars that don't exist." That's Stoic power, the refusal to fight battles that don't lead to peace. And if you're afraid that people will think wrongly of you, ask yourself this. If someone calls you a donkey, do you check a mirror? Of course not, because you know who you are. True freedom is when you no longer need to prove it. So if they twist your story, smile. If they dig up your mistakes, stay calm. If they provoke your emotions, let them meet your silence. You owe no explanation for the chapters you've already healed. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Let your peace be your proof. Let your actions be your defense. Let your composure be your statement." Transformation, the Stoic way. Every one of us carries an older version of ourselves, a version that made mistakes, that stumbled, that spoke before thinking, that hurt others or ourselves. But those versions are not enemies. They are teachers. Without your past self, you wouldn't have the wisdom you now hold. Without those dark nights, you wouldn't appreciate the light. The addict who found recovery now guides others toward freedom. The person who failed in business can mentor others to success. The one who was betrayed can teach forgiveness. That's transformation. That's what it means to turn scars into strength. The Stoic doesn't deny pain, they refine it. They take what was meant to break them and forge something unbreakable. The Stoic conclusion, freedom through acceptance. In the end, people will always try to use your past against you, not because you are weak, but because your growth reminds them of what they've avoided within themselves. When you rise, you become a mirror, and not everyone is ready to face their reflection. They don't attack you because you're broken. They attack because you've healed. Your calm exposes their chaos. Your peace reveals their unrest. So remember these truths. Acknowledge your past without shame. Turn every mistake into a lesson, not a life sentence. Ask questions instead of reacting. That's how a Stoic wins. Quietly, gracefully, without argument. Through dignity, not noise. You don't need to fight to prove you've changed. Those who truly see you will already know. Those who refuse to see you, no explanation will ever be enough. And one day, when someone brings up your past again, you'll smile, not in pride, not in pain, but in peace, and say, "Thank you, but I've already finished that chapter." Then walk away, calm, centered, untouchable, because you are not what happened to you. You are what you chose to become after it. That's the essence of Stoicism, not forgetting your past, but standing in front of it and saying, "I am not defined by this. I am defined by how I faced it." Your past doesn't define you. How you face it does. And when the world tries to drag you backward, remember, you've already moved forward. So stand tall, breathe deep, and whisper to yourself, I've closed that chapter. My story moves forward. Thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and hit that subscribe button for more.